Boston Celtics will sweep the Orlando Magic in 4 games in the first round of the NBA playoffs because we're going to break that down here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I know it's a very risky take, right? Well, not really. The Orlando Magic, they've struggled with injuries. They've struggled with scoring so far throughout the season. So I'm going to break down why I think the Boston Celtics will be able to wrap this one up in 4. Before I do that, join us live for every single Boston Celtics game in the NBA playoffs. We need 9 more subs to reach 48,000, which is a huge milestone here on this channel. If you guys want to be a part of history, hoping to watch the Boston Celtics do something they have not done in 56 years, which is bring back-to-back championships for the NBA in the city of Boston, then go on ahead and hit that sub button down below. Number 1. Why I think the Boston Celtics will sweep the Orlando Magic is you have to take care of 2 players, Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, which I'm going to look to the Jays, the power forward and the small forward, Tatum and Brown, to lock down Banchero and Wagner because those are obviously the Magic's best players. And they're really the only 2 players that can keep them in a game, at least a close game, with the Boston Celtics. And I say that because Jalen Suggs and Moritz Wagner are out. Had surgeries done. Not any chance they are suiting up. Not doubtful, not day-to-day, out. So that leaves Banchero with 26 points a game, and then Franz Wagner slightly underneath him with 24 points a game. The next leading scorer is Anthony Black with not even 10 points a game. Now, I'm not saying that Cole Anthony, Tristan Da Silva, or Anthony Black can't get hot a game, but you're really only looking at 2 scorers that can actually produce night in and night out for the Magic. So if you shut down Banchero and you shut down Wagner, it's a wrap. It's done. Who else is going to be able to put up 30-plus points tonight against the Boston Celtics, who are the best rim-protecting defense in the NBA? And we know that their strong suit is not from downtown, especially not Banchero's and Wagner's. Cole Anthony, of course, he can be an X factor. We got cooked by Tristan Da Silva back in December. He had 18 points on us. I know they have other scores, but it's really just those 2. And Tatum is going to lock up Paolo Banchero. We're going to have former Duke Blue Devil versus former Blue Devil. And we also heard Jayson Tatum say, look, there's no friends in the postseason. So I know Tatum is about to lock in. This obviously is not their first meeting. They have had several meetings over the last couple of years, but they've only had 1 so far this season. And when I really look at this matchup on paper, it looks like that Tatum should honestly not be able to lock up a guy like Banchero. 250 pounds, 6'10" to 6'8", 210 with Jayson Tatum. The offensive rating is a lot better than Tatum's. The defensive rating is even a lot better than Tatum's. And the net rating is slightly higher than Jayson Tatum's. But in the last 3 seasons, they have played 7 games against each other because Banchero has dealt with a lot of injuries over the last few years. And as you guys can see, they've only played 1 game so far against each other this year. Well, Tatum guarding Paolo, he shot 1 for 4, 25%, and 33% from downtown. And then when you look at last year, when they played 3 games against each other, it was even worse for Banchero's scoring. 3 for 12, 0 for 3. Then he was 0 for 5 from downtown in 2022-23. Tatum has a history of locking up the 6'10", 250-pound Paolo Banchero, and he's going to need to do it again. But he can't do it alone. And that is why I think a man-to-man for Tatum and Paolo, it's going to be a pretty good matchup. But what's really going to lock down Banchero here is having the help of Al Horford from Jayson Tatum. So when you have Al Horford, who's going to be primarily holding down your paint, your post, probably not going to go too far out if you're playing a man-to-man or a 2-3 zone here. What Tatum is going to need is Al Horford kind of watching Banchero from an angle. He's going to need to be able to crash in and break down into a double team against Paolo if he starts to get a little bit too heavy down low. And if they can't clog the paint enough, if Tatum can't do it alone. So Horford is going to be another key factor here to making sure that Paolo does not go off in any game against Boston. But I do think that what Tatum has been able to do in the last 3 seasons, I have no doubt that he's going to be able to lock in and make sure that Banchero does not have any highlights against him. Now, is he going to hold him to 0 points? Absolutely not. But we need to keep him somewhere in a 12 to 20 range. That way there is just no explosive offensive run for Banchero. Can Tatum clamp up Paolo? Let me know in the comments down below. Type Y for yes, type in for no, because this is just one of two lethal offensive weapons that the Orlando Magic do have. So let me know in the comment section down below. Now, like I said, if Jalen Suggs was healthy, I think this series could actually probably go to 6 games. I think Jalen Suggs does a very good job of finding Boston's weak spots. Same thing with Moritz Wagner. But they're out, and that's a really unfortunate for fans. We want to watch a good series. So the reason why I do think that Boston will be able to clamp up the Magic in 4 games is because you're also going to have Jaylen Brown primarily guarding Franz Wagner. Now, he doesn't clamp him up the same way that Tatum has done Banchero in the last couple of years, but it is still a pretty good matchup where Franz doesn't have open season. Brown does contest him. And they haven't played together this year. I think Brown is a different player from years past. I think he's obviously a lot stronger. He doesn't take as many threes. He really works on his defense down low. So when I look at Brown guarding Wagner, I'm a little bit more skeptical about this pairing than I am with the former Duke players. Why? Because last year in 3 games, Franz was able to score 18 points, 53% and 66% from downtown against Brown. Same thing, 2022-23, he shot 35%, a little bit lower here in the field goal, and then obviously just absolutely sucked from a three-point line. And same thing, but we're talking about like a 4-year gap here. Brown has excelled. Brown was not an Eastern Conference Finals and NBA Finals MVP when he did take on Franz Wagner. So I think that this could definitely be a very testy matchup that is going to need to be figured out in Game 1. Because you're going to, have to realize if Brown can handle a fully healthy Franz Wagner. He's been injured this year, but he's healthy right now, and Brown technically isn't. He's not 100%, although nobody is worried about Brown. Mazzulla, Holiday, Horford, everybody is watching him practice at full participation, so Brown is good to go, but can his knee keep up for all 4 quarters going up against the second leading scorer for the Orlando Magic? That is where it's starting to get testy. Not to mention, Brown is going to need to stay out of foul trouble. If Brown cannot keep up with Franz, if he is blowing by him, if he's maybe getting, a little bit shifty there, Brown just can't start reaching. He can't start blocking. Because if he racks up foul trouble, then it's going to have to get a little bit deeper in the depth chart. Maybe a Sam Hauser try and guard Franz Wagner. But we also do know that the Orlando Magic are also very good at shooting free throws. Not to mention, Paolo and Franz Wagner, Paolo, 23% of his points come from free throws. Franz Wagner, only 18% of his points come from free throws. These aren't huge numbers. I'm not looking at 75%, but it's enough to make him have 20 points on the floor by himself and then add 6 on free points. Now he's got 26. Now same thing for Wagner. It can easily take him from 18 points to 28 if Jaylen Brown or whoever's guarding Wagner doesn't do it strategically and they keep putting him back on the free throw line, especially if somebody like Tony Brothers is reffing your game. So I do think that you cannot let both Wagner and Banchero freak out, because it's going to be a lot harder to sweep the Orlando Magic if both of them have a breakout game. Now, if you are able to hold Wagner to 12 points and Paolo to maybe 24, 26, I think that's an easy win for Boston. They're going to need secondary scoring. Yes, they have Cole Anthony, they have Anthony Black, but I'm talking about game in, game out. Banchero and Wagner do this. You need to force these two into prolonged scoring droughts, which they have. And I'm not talking 3-4 minutes. We have seen the Orlando Magic literally not score for 8 minutes in a ball game. You need to pressure them, force them outside. They suck at three-point shooting. Clog the trenches, make sure they do not have anything going up against Brown and Tatum. So in conclusion, I will take the Jays over Paolo and Banchero, and that is why I have faith the Boston Celtics will sweep in 4 games. But Boston also has to offensively produce, and we're going to talk about that just very quickly in 1 second. First, let me ask you guys this. Are you worried about Jaylen Brown's knee facing Franz Wagner, facing Wendell Carter Jr., Paolo, whoever? I don't care. It could be facing Brett Alper. If you guys are worried about Jaylen Brown's knee, scale it 1 to 10. 1, not an ounce of worry. 10, you're staying up at night thinking about his knee. All right, what does Boston need to do on offense? We're going to break that down here in just 1 second. But I do want to tell you guys real quick about our official ticketing partnership. here on Celtics Today by Chat Sports, and that is with Game Time. If you guys want to go see the Boston Celtics play in action and watch history unfold in front of your eyes, then Game Time is the app to use. You guys will get the lowest price guaranteed. You're also going to have phenomenal deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy shows, maybe even the theater. Pretty much anything that requires a ticket upon entry, Game Time has got you covered. Not to mention all-in pricing. You will pay the fee you see when you select your seats at checkout. No hidden surprise fees. And you can get a nice little 180 panoramic view in the app from your seat before you buy. That way you guys have 100% sure this is where you want to sit. So if you guys want to go ahead and get started, just download the Game Time app. Use promo code ChatSports for $20 off your first time buying tickets while terms apply. Again, download the Game Time app. Use promo code ChatSports. This will give you guys $20 off your first time buying tickets while terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It is game time. Boston is going to have to shake up their offensive schemes a little bit. Just a little bit. I do think they still need to rely heavily on the three ball because that is what works for Boston, but they're going to have to be efficient around the rim. Orlando knows how to defend the perimeter. And they do have size down low as well, which could be a bit of a struggle for Boston. But if they can take all three levels scoring, that will shut down the Magic's defense. Because when you look at Orlando's defense, their three-point defense, they allow the first fewest amount of three-point attempts per game. 31 attempts. Boston's chucking up like 53s a game. This is going to be very tough for them. They know how to spread out their defense and protect downtown. But their rim protection's not as great as their three-point attempts are. 63% is what they allow in field goal percentage for opponents down low. That's 13th in the NBA. So I do have a feeling that KP, Al Horford, Tatum, Brown, even a guy like Drew Holiday, who likes to shimmy along the baseline, put reverse layups up, scoring around the rim is going to be key here for the Boston Celtics to put up numbers against the Magic. I do think Tatum is going to need to facilitate this the most. Tatum, who is kind of known for taking over and having about 11 to 13 threes a game in the playoffs because that's where he starts to feel comfortable, and he likes those ISO step-back threes, but I need him to use his muscle and drive more because what he did in January against the Magic proves my point. 4 for 9 from downtown. That's less than 50%. And then 12 for 21 from the field. That is more of what I want to see. He put a 30-burger on him in 35 minutes because he big-bodied their bigs down low. You have a 6'8" power forward who is very efficient when it comes to ball handling. That is why I think Jayson Tatum needs to take this lead and start to score down low efficiently. And then as you gain a lead, start to maybe rely on your three ball a little bit later. Overall, whether they're shooting down low, whether they're shooting from downtown, doesn't matter. Whether they're guarding Banchero or Wagner, the whole point of sweeping the Magic is you have got to stay clean. Stay out of foul trouble. This is how the Orlando Magic can creep back up if you do happen to make a big lead for the Boston Celtics. I think when you play clean and you make sure there are no turnovers, there are no fouling, it is going to be a seamless basketball game because the Magic's defense is where it really starts to push the Boston Celtics rhythm. Magic forced the most opponents' turnovers in the NBA at 16.1 turnovers a game. That is what I mean by Boston needs to play clean. I cannot have you turning the ball over or stepping out of bounds, Peyton Pritchard. Now, I understand turnovers are a part of the game, so you're obviously not going to be completely clean, but you need to play smart. Because if we start throwing the ball away or just getting frazzled by their bigs or frazzled by Wagner, somebody, it's going to completely flip the switch, and we can look at a 6-game series. Because they played them 3 times so far in the regular season, and we lost to them in December, 108 to 104. We had 19 turnovers in that game. We beat them in January because we had 10 turnovers. That's more like it. And then, of course, the April loss, but they benched all 6 starters for the Boston Celtics. That includes Al Horford, so obviously they had 16 turnovers in that game. But regardless, do not have more than 14. You cannot have more than 14 turnovers. That's like the maximum for me either. You always want to stay under 14. Because if you get up to 16, 19, at some point there's going to be a hole you have to dig yourself out of. That's just how the game of basketball works. And so, my final conclusion here is that the Magic are very, very capable of getting 1 or 2 games on the Boston Celtics. But if Boston plays clean, they don't turn over, if they watch their foul trouble, if they lock down Banchero and they lock down Wagner, I really do not see the Orlando Magic having enough firepower to take down Boston in a 4-game series. I don't. Especially when we're healthy. They do not have 2 of their best players in Jalen Suggs and Mortis Wagner. That is why I do think that if Boston plays Boston Celtics basketball, they keep the pace. They're efficient from downtown. They know how to score at all 3 levels. They're playing good defense. That is how I think the Boston Celtics will sweep the Orlando Magic. Let me know in the comment section down below, though, how you guys feel. I mean, am I just out here speaking nonsense? Can Boston sweep the Magic? Type S for sweep if you guys do agree. And as always, we will be live for every single Boston Celtics basketball playoff game. So come join us. All you guys have to do is hit that sub button.